Hello everyone, this is Logan59XP here, and today we are here to talk about my predictions and hopes for the 2024 Game Awards. You know what this is all about. This is the fifth one of these I've done, so let's just go ahead and get straight into this. So, let's go ahead and start real quick with the announcements before we get into the awards. So, when it comes to the announcements for the Game Awards, which, funny enough, despite the fact that it's called the Game Awards and the Game Awards are the Game Awards, like they're the Oscars of gaming, they're the big one, the one that everyone cares about. There are other ones like the Golden Joystick and stuff, and that's neat. I know people care about those as well. But this is the big one. Say what you will about the Game Awards or Jeff Keighley or the industry or whatever, but it's undeniable that the Game Awards has cemented itself as the Game Awards. But anyways, I'm getting sidetracked here. The point is, despite the fact that it's called the Game Awards, the awards part of the show is kind of a side piece outside of the end. I mean, yes, the actual game of the year, that's a big deal, and they set it up pretty well where they have the orchestra play like a key song from one of the games. Like, that's cool. I think that's always been really cool when they do that. But outside of Game of the Year, the rest of the awards are kind of just like, they just kind of exist. Like, it's like they announce games in succession, and then they'll just be like, okay, it's time to do Best Action Game of the Year. And sometimes it's literally hand-waved off. Like, they'll just have an announcer be like, okay, and the winner is this, and they'll just keep going. Like sometimes they have people on stage, sometimes it's literally just a voiceover. And even, I don't know, it's kind of weird. But anyways, again, we're getting sidetracked here. The point is, despite the fact that the Game Awards is called the Game Awards for most people is not really about the awards outside of Game of the Year, because most people watch the Game Awards for the announcements. And when it comes to the announcements this year, we do have a couple of confirmations on stuff that is confirmed to be there, such as Borderlands 4, that's a big one right there. A Dying Light expansion is going to be there. Mafia: The Old Country, which from what I've read is a prequel to the series. Then there's a game called Mecha Break, which I've never heard of. Then we have Pal World, of course, a big heavy hitter from earlier on this year. And then we have Tekken 8, big fighting game, of course. New DLC for that, I assume. And then we have Warframe, a game that's been around for like 10 years. 11 years. I think Warframe first came out with the PS4 and Xbox One. It's like a launch title. It's still live and kicking, and it's still popular. I've played a bit of it. I know I've heard people talk about it as kind of like a Destiny style game that ironically came out before Destiny, but I don't know. I've played a bit of it. It's not really my thing. Then again, Destiny is not really my thing either, but it's obviously very popular. So those are the games that are confirmed to be here, but as for what else could possibly be here, well, I'll be completely honest with you guys. I haven't actually looked into what's rumored. I've been kind of out of the loop when it comes to rumors for the Game Awards recently, so you're going to get to hear me literally look it up as I'm recording this. So if you hear the keyboard, I'm going to do noise suppression on this, obviously, in post. But if you hear me type in on my keys here, then yeah, I'm literally going to look this up right now, because I unironically didn't look at it beforehand. That's my fault. So let's go ahead and see what is rumored. Is there any big rumors for stuff that may or may not be there? Let's see, there are rumors for God of War. I find that unlikely, considering that we had Ragnarok 2 years ago, and last year they had the Valhalla DLC at the Game Awards. So unless we're talking about like a show or something, or like a remake of an old game or something, or a collection, we're not going to get a new God of War now. It's like a third game in the new trilogy. Although I don't think they're doing a third game in the new style from 2018. I think they're just doing the two, and they're going to do like a new thing going forward with that. But I don't know. So apparently, and again, this is a huge, take this all with a big grain of salt. I'm literally just looking at articles as they appear. Again, apologies, I didn't really research this beforehand, but I see there's something about something God of War. Rise of the Ronin DLC, that's a Team Ninja game, Koei Tecmo game that came out earlier this year. DLC for that, and then something called Split Fiction. Okay, so that's something, I guess. What else is there? Let's see, Crimson Desert, Dune Awakening. Oh yeah, that's a tie-in game for the Dune like movies and stuff. Well, okay, Dunes existed long before the recent movies. There was a movie in the 80s, and there was a book before that, like, obviously, but anyway. I'm just looking up stuff here to see if there's anything I would say has any realistic chance of being here. Okay, so there is a rumor. Now, actually, I have heard about this one. There is rumors of a Days Gone remastered being announced soon, possibly at the Game Awards. Now, I imagine the reaction most people would have to hearing me say that is the exact same reaction they had a year ago when there were rumors of a Horizon Zero Dawn remake or remaster or whatever, which is, why? Why are we remastering or remaking or whatever a game that came out in 2019? Days Gone came out on the PS4 in 2019. It already runs at 60 FPS on PS5 because with a patch they put out years ago. And there's already a PC version that came out a few years ago as well. Why do we need a remaster? Like, I'm all for more resolution and better settings and whatnot, but like, I don't know. I mean, with Horizon Zero Dawn, I could at least understand a little bit. Like, people talked about The Last of Us, right? You know, The Last of Us getting remade. But that I at least could understand because it was a PS3 game. And it was a late-gen PS3 game that still holds up pretty well today, even on the PS4 remaster that runs at 4K on the PS4 Pro and PS5, before we had the remake. But, okay, it was obvious the real reason why they put out The Last of Us remake. They made The Last of Us remake for one simple reason, in my opinion, and that is the show. The show was coming out, they wanted to have the remake there to capitalize on it. That was the only big reason, in my opinion, why that existed at all. And the same thing goes for why they remastered The Last of Us Part 2 earlier this year. Now, that one was obviously just a remaster. That wasn't even a remake like Last of Us Part 1 was. Because, obviously, Last of Us Part 2 came out in 2020. It's only a 4-year-old game, and it's still one of the best-looking games on the PS4. But my point is, they put out that remaster earlier this year because they're going to have Season 2 of the show, which is going to be based on The Last of Us Part 2. But anyways, and Horizon Zero Dawn might also be getting a show, so maybe that's also why they did it. I don't know. Point is, Sony has been getting big into, you know, having these, you know, they're trying to kind of Pokemon their franchises in the sense that they're in multiple mediums, right? Because Pokemon was kind of, I don't want to say it was the originator, because I'm sure there was one before that point that was, but it was certainly one of the originators of the like basically being everywhere on everything all at once, not to be confused with the movie from a few years ago that everyone really liked or whatever that I haven't seen. It's on the list of important, notable movies from the last 100 years I need to get around to seeing. I know, that's a whole other conversation. But anyways, yeah, I mean, the main point is, of this whole little side tangent is, Days Gone, Days Gone remastered, if it exists, I don't know why, because as far as I know, there's no show or movie or anything happening. And Days Gone 2 was infamously canned, and the creator of the series, or the creator of the original game, I should say, was very unhappy with it and made it very public that he was unhappy with it. And for what it's worth, I've heard good things about Days Gone. I mean, people kind of lambasted it at the time for being another zombie game in a time where people were kind of tired of zombie games, but people did like it, and it's definitely gotten a better reputation as time has gone on. And there are people out there that want to see a sequel, that want to see Days Gone 2. Will we get it at some point? Who knows? If this remaster sells well, will it happen? Who knows? But my point is, with The Last of Us Part 1, I can understand doing a remake, even if I thought it was unnecessary. With Horizon Zero Dawn, which was even less necessary. They're trying to make Horizon this really big thing. They have the Lego game coming out and stuff, or the Lego game did come out, I should say. I think it came out last month or whatever. I don't know. Point is, okay, fine, whatever, I get that. Horizon's one of their big IPs. But Days Gone, I don't know. I don't know about that one. And I'm probably dragging this one out way too much. But the point is, Days Gone Remastered is apparently a rumor. I mean, it wouldn't be surprising at this point because the last couple of years have seen a lot of remasters from Sony, so it wouldn't be that surprising. Again, we had The Last of Us Part 1 and Part 2, then we had Horizon, and then we had a couple of director's cuts like Ghost of Tsushima. They've been porting all their games to PC lately. I mean, they had the Until Dawn remake earlier this year. I mean, a Days Gone remaster is not the most outlandish thing ever. It's just another, but it's just one of those ones that really is just like, why? There's really no point. It looks and runs just fine on the PS5 as is. This isn't a PS3 game or even a launch PS4 game that's stuck at 900p. This is a game that already ran at 4K checkerboard 60 FPS on the PS5. It doesn't need a remaster. Will it have improvements? Sure. Will it have PS5 Pro support for the 2 people that have it? Sure. But, yeah. Anyways, I'm dragging this out way too long. So anyways, that's a rumor. Now let's go ahead and quash one thing right off the bat. This isn't a rumor or anything, but let's just go ahead and get this one out of the way because there's literally no chance it's going to be here. Now, last year, we got the very first GTA 6 trailer a few days before the Game Awards. Okay, I was going to transition into something after that, but I'll just say it. The GTA 6 is not going to be here. That seems obvious. And it's for one simple reason. It's for the same reason why they announced GTA 6 before the Game Awards last time. They don't need the Game Awards. GTA 6 is bigger than the Game Awards, so they don't have to be there. Now, that's a concept that I'm not the biggest fan of. Like, it's the same reason that E3 died off. Like, I know people have their opinions as to why. Like, why did E3 die? If you were to ask me, I think the number one reason is simply that the companies didn't need it anymore. You could just hold online presentations and they would accomplish the same thing. So why bother spending millions of dollars to set up a booth and do a press conference? There's no point. And obviously there are benefits for the people that actually go there. They get to play the demos, they get to interact with the people. And obviously E3 was more than just the announcements. I know that, but to the general public, that's what E3 was. It was, gaming Christmas. It was the time of year when all the companies came together and did their big event and announced all their big stuff. And then that slowly withered away as time went on, as companies began to announce more and more of their stuff outside of E3 at their own events. And then by the end, it was really limping on its feet. I mean, that's a whole video that, frankly, I need to make at some point, kind of like an E3 retrospective and kind of the downfall of E3 and stuff, because it really is a shame. E3 was such a classic institution, 25 years, snuffed out because and only because the big three didn't want to show up. No, seriously, the E3 was canceled officially last year, like for good. Not this year, but like E3 was officially canned for good last year, and that was literally because the big three didn't want to show up. Microsoft, Sony, and Nintendo were all like, we support the ESA, we support E3, but they didn't actually want to show up. So, yeah, I'm getting off track. This is about the Game Awards, not E3. But anyways, my main point is GTA 6 is not going to be here. I don't think anyone's expecting it to be, but it's not going to be here. Again, that's not rumored or anything. I'm just quashing that right here and now. Now, we haven't had a trailer in a year, so it is probably time for us to get another trailer. But at the same time, if they're going to do it, they're going to do it on their own, because did you see how many views the last trailer got on its own? And it was leaked. Like, it was supposed to be this big, tune in at whatever time it was. And they were going to have, like, the whole world there. And then it leaked, like, 5 or 6 hours early, and it's just like, oh, great. It's kind of a shame that leaked, but, and when I say leaked, I don't mean like some guy on Reddit or whatever, or 4chan. No. I mean like, they just put up the trailer. Like, 5 or 6 hours before it was supposed to go up or whatever, or something like that. I don't know. It was a year ago. I'm forgetting the particulars. Maybe someone leaked it first and then they put it up because they were like, screw it, everyone already knows. I forget. Anyways, moving on. Okay, so another thing that's apparently been talked about is something from CD Projekt Red. They've, of course, been a feature at the Game Awards for years with Cyberpunk and stuff. And, of course, we have the Witcher 4 on the way. That's been talked about. I personally think it's a little too early for that. Like, maybe next year at the Game Awards, it could be there. But I think they only announced The Witcher 4, like, maybe a year or two ago. And I know one of the big announcements from it was that now they're gonna be moving away from the Red Engine, which has been used on the previous Witcher games and Cyberpunk, over to Unreal Engine 5, which is a move that, if it was done 5 or 6 years ago, I think people would have been all in on that. But now, ironically, there's been a big pushback over the last year against Unreal Engine 5 for being, stuttery and unoptimized and requiring way too much hardware for too little results. And it's been a thing that's been talked about plenty of times on channels that are more qualified than I am. So I'm not really going to get into that. All I'm going to say is people are actually disappointed that they're moving away from Red Engine. Which, if you had told people that in 2020, when Cyberpunk had its infamous launch, particularly on last-gen consoles, but also on PC, people would have been like, are you kidding me? Them moving the Unreal Engine is great. That means all those bugs and stuff won't be there. Now, obviously, Cyberpunk has had a bit of a No Man's Sky type thing, in my opinion, I think that the damage has mostly been redeemed. I still think that launch, that 2020 initial launch, is still going to be looked back as a bad thing. But the game itself has mostly been redeemed. And that's partly because of all the updates they've done to it. The Phantom Liberty expansion, as well as some of the tie-ins like that Edge Runners anime. I think they have done a pretty good job at resurrecting the image of that game. I don't think it's seen as a masterpiece or anything. It's definitely not as well received as something like The Witcher 3. But they have salvaged it. That infamous reception from 2020 is ancient history at this point. They have basically redeemed themselves. Now, I still think people are going to go into The Witcher 4 being a little skeptical. I don't think people have forgotten. But I think people are definitely going to be more willing this time around as opposed to last time. But again, that's a whole other conversation for another day. Anyways, point is, I think it's too early for The Witcher 4. Maybe next year. I think it's a bit too early right now. So, what else is there? Is there anything else? Well, there isn't anything in particular, but we can talk about just general things we might see from certain companies. So, first things first, what about Xbox? Well, of course, Indiana Jones and the Great Circle just released, so they're probably not going to have anything big at the Game Awards just because of that alone. But outside of that, what could they have at the Game Awards? Well, honestly, they can't have Hellblade because Hellblade's been the thing, right? For a long time, Hellblade was kind of like the thing they had. But Hellblade came out earlier this year, so they can't show Hellblade again unless they're going to do a DLC or something. They could show off more footage of the Gears game, E-Day, that they showed at the Xbox event earlier this year. They could show that. It's way too early for them to show any of the new Halo stuff, because, of course, Halo had a revamp a few months ago, or 343 got rebranded from 343 to Halo Studios, and they're going to be moving again, like a lot of other studios, to Unreal Engine 5, and they showed us some like beta screenshots of stuff. And people are speculating that there's going to be a Halo CE, Halo 1 remake that might even be multi-platform, which at this point, I honestly would expect it at this point. I mean, Phil Spencer, I think, a few weeks ago, maybe a month ago, said that there is no red line for what can come to that PlayStation. There's no red line. He straight up said there is no red line. This is a whole video that, again, I should do at some point, kind of like the state. I want to do the state of for the big three. I want to do the state of Xbox, the state of PlayStation, and the state of Nintendo. I want to do that for all the big three console makers. I want to do that at some point. Maybe we'll do it early next year or something. I don't know, but that's something I want to do at some point, because that's obviously been a big talking point throughout the last year or so. It's kind of the future of Xbox, and And at this point, it's literally confirmed that multi-platform is effectively their future, for better or for worse. But again, that's a conversation for another time. Point is, will Xbox have anything big here? I don't think so. Now, one thing I think would be kind of cool to see is, I don't know if you guys are going to remember this, because this was announced like 5 years ago, but the newest game from Rare, Everwild, was announced in 2019, and we haven't seen it since. In fact, they haven't done anything since Sea of Thieves, really. So I think it's about time that we see something new from Rare. So it would be cool if we could even just see that Everwild game again. But if not that, see something else, assuming they have something else in the works. They could also show off Perfect Dark. I believe they've shown Perfect Dark at... Have they shown Perfect Dark at the Game Awards before? I want to say they have it like once. Was it announced there? Oh, I forget. I don't know. I think they may have shown Perfect Dark there at one point, but I don't know. But point is, there's a bunch of things they could announce. I can't think of anything in particular off the top of my head that would be a... Oh yeah, that might be a thing that's there. Actually, you know what? You know what I could see them announcing? More multi-plat stuff, particularly for PS5. Like, again, you heard what Phil Spencer said. There is no red line. There is no, we're not bringing this game to PS5. He has said anything is on the table. That means Gears, that means Forza, and yes, that means Halo. So honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if we got more PS5 ports announced. Particularly for the big three. Like, what's the big three of Xbox? Halo, Forza, and Gears. I wouldn't be surprised if we got an announcement of even just the old Gears of Wars. Like, maybe like they bring over Gears 1 through 3 on PS5. Or Gears 4, or Gears 5, or the Forza Horizons, or Halo Infinite, Halo MCC. I wouldn't be surprised. It feels like it's inevitable at this point. And I think that'd be kind of neat. Again, I know people have their opinions on the whole multi-plat thing, and I have my opinions on them too. And again, that's a conversation that will be saved for the state of Xbox discussion at some point in the next year, probably. But, I don't know. I guess the long and short of it is, I can't think of anything in particular that they would be like, I'm like, oh yeah, that'll totally be there right now. And I don't know any potential rumors at the moment. But I think more multi-plat ports. And by multi-plat ports, I mean PS5 ports. Really. I know they've put games on Switch as well, but the Switch is obviously very long in the tooth at this point. So I'm focusing on PS5 for this. But yeah, I could see, I think multi-plat ports is probably the best thing I can think of, because obviously there was the original 4. They had Sea of Thieves, Hi-Fi Rush, Grounded, and Pentiment. Those were the original 4, right from that famous Xbox business briefing that blew up the internet for a while from earlier this year. And then Phil Spencer was like, hey, we're going to do these 4 games, and then after these 4 games, we'll see what happens. We'll go from there based on how well they do. And obviously they did well, or at least some of them did well. And then they started announcing other games for multi-plat, and then they announced that Indiana Jones is going to be coming to PS5 in 2025. And again, they had that quote from like the last few weeks of there's no red line. So, and then Satya Nadella, apparently, which if you don't know who Satya Nadella is, he's like the CEO of Microsoft. Like, Phil Spencer is the CEO of Microsoft Gaming and Xbox, but Satya Nadella is the tippy top. He is the CEO of Microsoft, the whole company. So he said in an investors meeting or something, or shareholder meeting or whatever, like a month or two ago, that like their plan is multi-platform, go all in on multi-platform. And again, combine that with what Phil Spencer said recently about there's no red line. I mean, again, whether you think it's a good or a bad thing that Microsoft is effectively going third party. Not in the way Sega went third party, because they're still making hardware. And I don't think they're going to abandon hardware anytime soon. Plus, they even announced that there's going to be future hardware. Plus, a new handheld and stuff. But point is, the writing really is on the wall for the future of Xbox. And that future is multi-plat. But again, it's a conversation for another time. This is about the Game Awards. But this is also a discussion video made by me, and those are known for their tangents, so you know what to expect at this point. Point is, I think multi-plat ports, particularly of those high-profile games like Forza and stuff, I think those are probably the most realistic thing. At least I could... Actually, wait, no. A new trailer for the new Doom game, The Dark Ages. I could see that being there. That'd be cool, actually. I actually would like to see that. But anyway, we'll leave the Microsoft discussion at that. Now, what about Sony? Well, we already talked about that potential Days Gone remaster, so I'm not going to rehash that. But outside of that, what else could they have? Well, obviously, people have been very much anticipating seeing new trailers for literally anything. I mean, we did get the new Ghost of Tsushima game, Ghosts of Yoedi. Now, I don't know if it's confirmed if that's going to be a Miles Morales type deal, where it's like a sequel, but it's also like a spin-off that's like not as big as the main game, and it's going to cost less. I don't know if that's confirmed, or if it's going to be, or if that is too. Because, you know, with Spider-Man, right, we had Spider-Man 1 on PS4, and then 2 years later we had Miles Morales, which is a sequel and a follow-up, but it's also not the true sequel, and it also stars a different character, and it also costed a bit less, and it was shorter than the main game. And then we got the actual sequel a few years after that, right, with Spider-Man 2. I don't know if this new Ghost of Tsushima is a Miles Morales type situation, or a Lost Legacy situation, for those that remember that, with Uncharted. Or if it's an actual, or if that is too, and it just happens to be with a new character. Either way, that was the last big thing that Sony announced, and I think they announced that a few months ago at the last State of Play. But outside of that, we don't know anything, basically. I mean, we know that Spider-Man 2 is going to come to PC in January, but I think outside of that, that's pretty much it. It's really just PC ports, and then that new Ghost of Tsushima. That's about it, as far as I can remember. Maybe there's another first-party game that they've announced that I don't know about, but that's all I can think of right now. So, I don't think they would show the Ghost of Tsushima game. I think it's a bit too early for that. They'll probably save that for the next State of Play. So, what else is there that isn't a remaster or a remake? Well, if you were to ask me what I want to see, and we've been talking a lot about what the internet has said there's going to be. What do I want to see? Well, if you're asking me, personally, what do I want to see from Sony? I want to finally see Wolverine. They announced it 3 years ago. Spider-Man 2 came out a year ago. The PC port's coming out in like a month. It's time for us to see it. I'm not expecting much, but I think it's time that we finally get to see actual gameplay. And I know that there was the whole Insomniac leak from last year that had leaked gameplay in it, but I personally didn't look at any of that leaked footage because I want to remain blind on it, and I want to just see it when they actually reveal it. But I think it's time we see the new Wolverine game. And honestly, the timing for it would be pretty decent because, of course, we had the big success of Deadpool and Wolverine earlier this year. So, well, obviously the hype train on that has certainly cooled down since it came out in, like, July. You know, people are still more invigorated about Wolverine than they were a few years ago. So I still think, so now would be a decent time to do it. It would have been better if they'd done it in September when they had a State of Play, but hey, it is what it is. So, I want to see Wolverine. Personally, that's what I would say I'd want to see the most. At least of all the stuff we know, finally see Wolverine. It'll probably be released in, like, I think, in terms of a release date, I don't think we have a release date for Wolverine. But my guess is that it's probably going to be late 2025 at the earliest, if not 2026. But it will be out by the end of 2026. I don't think it'll get delayed into 2027. I think that'd be kind of weird, because it will have been in development for like 5 years at that point, probably, but if not longer, with how long games take to make these days. But yeah, so in terms of Sony, honestly, I don't really have much. I want to see Wolverine personally, but outside that, I can't really think of anything else off the top of my head that isn't a remake or a remaster. So yeah, it's about that. Apologies, I couldn't go more into depth on that one. So, What else do we have? Well, let's talk about Atlus, because Atlus has been on a pretty good streak lately. This year has been a pretty big year for them, with the release of Persona 3 Reload in February, SMT coming to multi-plat with a new version with Vengeance in the summer, and then of course we had the recent critical darling that is Metaphor ReFantazio, aka Project ReFantasy from forever ago that finally came out. And I haven't played it, but obviously it's gotten rave reviews as you would expect from an Atlus title made by the guys that made 3, 4, and 5. Just for clarification, for those of you who don't know, Metaphor is not made by the Persona team, but it is made by the people that made 3, 4, and 5, which might sound weird. It's like, oh, how is that not the Persona team? Well, okay, so the director of Persona 3, 4, and 5, Hoshino, left P Studio, which is Atlus's Persona team, as the name P Studio would imply, to form Studio Zero, another Atlus subsidiary. And they're the team that made Catherine Full Body, the re-release of Catherine, with new stuff in it. And they're the ones that made Metaphor ReFantazio. And the other two big guys of the last few Persona games, that being Meguro and Soejima, they're also on the project. So they have the dream team, like the dream team of Persona 3, 4, and 5. Hoshino, Soejima, and Meguro, they all worked on Metaphor ReFantazio. So that's the whole clarification with that. So the Persona team did not make Metaphor, but the core 3 guys that made those last 3 games did make this one, but as a part of a different team than the Persona team. Anyways, so yeah, we had Persona 3 Reload, we had The Answer DLC came out a few months ago, and then we had SMT5 Vengeance, which is multi-plat, and then we have Metaphor. So they've been on a pretty good streak this year, and frankly, as much as I want to see Persona 6 like everyone else, I think that they're going to hold this one out. Now, they've been at the Game Awards before. In fact, I'm pretty sure they showed Metaphor at the Game Awards last year. Now, they didn't reveal it there, but they had like a showcase for it where they had Hoshino or one of the guys on stage. So, and we also had Persona 4 Arena Ultimax, the modern port, was announced at the Game Awards in 2021. So there's a history of Atlus stuff being at the Game Awards. But personally, I think that they're just not going to bother. Because even if they were ready to show Persona 6 or some other big thing, I think that they're like, hey, we've already had our success this year, and Metaphor is still a recent game. We're going to sit on that for a while and wait a few more months, and then maybe like at the next Xbox event, because they've been doing a lot of stuff at Xbox events in the last few years. Maybe we'll save Persona 6 for then, or they'll do a big standalone event. Who knows? But as much as I want to see Persona 6 like everyone else, I think they're going to just sit on Metaphor for a while. So that's what I got to say about Atlus stuff. And honestly, outside of that, there's not really anything else that I at least think has a chance of being here. So I guess let's go ahead and talk about the only company I haven't talked about yet that I want to talk about. We've talked about Microsoft, we've talked about Sony, we've talked about Atlus. Let's go ahead and talk about the one you're all waiting for me to talk about. Let's talk about the big N themselves. This is probably not going to surprise anyone. I do not think that we're going to see anything from them this year. And if there is anything this year, it's going to be something very small. I'm expecting a repeat of the 2019 Nintendo Switch Has Games trailer, where they have ads, but they don't actually show anything. The last major announcement they had at the Game Awards was 2020 with Sephiroth. And the last announcement they had at the Game Awards at all was in 2022 when they announced that Bayonetta spin-off game. It had like a storybook aesthetic or whatever. And there's no indication in my mind that they would have anything to show this year, especially because, I mean, it's December of 2024. We are truly in the late game here of the Switch's lifespan. Echoes of Wisdom is out. Mario and Luigi's out. The new Mario Party is out. the Donkey Kong's coming out in a month. Like there's nothing. What else can they possibly announce that's substantial, that's for the current system? There's really not much left, or at least there shouldn't be. There really shouldn't be. We really should be on the last few games at this point. Now, I don't think we've seen everything. I still think there's probably 1 or 2 more games left in the Switch's pipeline we don't know about, but I don't think we're going to see anything else substantial. I think the last major game that will release on the Switch that isn't a potential cross-gen thing, but again, it's a conversation for another time, will be Prime 4. And just to get that out of the way, Prime 4 has always been a game that's been a hot topic for a Game Awards announcement. For years and years and years, people have talked about, could it be at the Game Awards? Because it's the kind of game that feels like it makes sense for the Game Awards. It just feels like the kind of game that they would show there. But it's never happened. But there's one key difference this time around. The game actually exists again, right? For 7 years, they didn't say squat about it other than telling us it was rebooted in 2019. But from that original E3 2017 trailer all the way up until June of 2024. I think it was June, right? Or was it September? No. There was no September Direct this year. June. It was June. Up until June of 2024. Nothing outside of that delay announcement. But now the game exists again. We have a subtitle. We have gameplay. Which means that the chances of them showing it here is higher than 0. It's like 1%, but like there is a chance this time around, even though I don't think it's going to happen. I think that they're going to skip this year and we're just going to get an ad. We're unironically going to get another Nintendo Switch Has Games type ad where they do a little compilation of all the recent games from the last like year or something. And that will be unironically it as far as first party stuff is concerned. It's unfortunate. It sucks. But that's what's going to happen. And if they do show anything, it will be Prime 4. But for real this time, because it's now a thing again, so they have an excuse to show it. Plus, we don't have a release date for it other than 2025, so yeah. I mean, if they want to really throw us off, they could show Legends Z to A, but that's not going to happen because 1, that's a Pokemon Company thing, not a Nintendo thing, and 2, because that game is clearly not coming out until like later in 2025. That game is not coming out in February, and thank God it's not. It shouldn't. Please give it more time in the oven, signed literally everyone. But like the Switch 2 itself, we'll get to that in a second, because obviously I have to address the Switch 2. But just like the Switch 2, if it was coming out in February or March, we would know by now. If Z to A was coming out in January or February like its predecessor did, we would know. They would have told us. We would have seen mountains of gameplay at this point. But we haven't, which means that it's not coming out until probably May or June at the absolute earliest, if not straight up the holiday 2025 game. But again, that's a whole other conversation for another time. So let's go ahead and get this one out of the way, the Switch 2. Again, shocker to absolutely nobody. It will not be here for the exact same reason that GTA 6 will not be here. The Switch 2 is bigger than the Game Awards, so they're not going to show it at the Game Awards. Now, I know I'm a bit biased in saying that, I will admit. And I will also fully admit that GTA 6 is way bigger than the Switch 2. Now, the Switch 2 is obviously a big deal. I think everyone would agree on that. But GTA 6 is a way bigger deal than the Switch 2 is. Because GTA 6 is going to get like 100 million copies in like 2 years. The Switch 2 is going to sell like maybe at best like 70 to 80 million consoles. Okay, that's not... Okay, I'm trying to make a false equivalency here between a game and a console, whatever. Ignore that whole stupid tangent, whatever. But my main point with that is the Switch 2 is in a similar boat as GTA 6 in that its announcement is a big enough deal that it can just be its own thing. That's my main point. So it will not be here. Not that I think it would be here anyway, but it's not going to be here. So, Nintendo's not going to be here. And if they have anything here, it will be a very small thing. I would say best case scenario is like a Twilight is the long awaited Twilight Princess Wind Waker, but frankly, even that's not nah. We're not gonna get anything. It is what it is, and for what it's worth, I'm not losing sleep over it. I mean, frankly, when it comes to Nintendo right now, I'm just waiting. We're at that point. We're at that summer 2016 point of we're just waiting. There's nothing else on the Switch that I really care about. So I'm just waiting for the Switch 2 at this point. I mean, sure, you got Echoes of Wisdom. That'd be neat to have. The new Mario and Luigi, sure. Although the reviews have been kind of mixed on that. But I don't care about those games that much. I can easily skip them and not lose out on anything. The last major game to come out on the system that I really cared about was Tears of the Kingdom, and to a lesser extent, World. And that was a year ago. The Switch is in its twilight years. There is not going to be anything major left. Any game I still want is going to be for the next system. So, the Switch right now is on the back burner. I have other games I need to play, other games I need to get. I still haven't played FF7 Rebirth. I still haven't played Wonder. I still haven't played Mario RPG. The remake, that is. I still haven't played Persona 3 Reload. Even though I have all those games, I still haven't played them yet. Among other games I still haven't played. The Switch is not that important right now. It's on the back burner, just waiting for the replacement to finally be announced. But point is, well, obviously it would be awesome if we got some kind of announcement. We're not going to get any, and I don't think anyone's expecting any. So, there's the announcement portion of the conversation that took us 40 minutes to do. Which means now we can talk about the Game Awards itself. This section will not be as long, I assure you. So, we're going to go over a couple of categories here. We're not going to go over all of them. We're just going to go over the ones that I think people are going to be the most interested in. So let's go ahead, and before we get to the big one, let's go ahead and address a bunch of the smaller ones first. So, let's go ahead and look at Best Score in Music. So for Best Score in Music, we have Astrobot, FF7 Rebirth, Metaphor, the Silent Hill 2 remake, and Stellar Blade. Now, I imagine that the only two that have any chance of winning are going to be Rebirth and Metaphor. Metaphor because it's Atlas and it's Meguro, and Rebirth because it's FF7. So those are the only two that stand any chance. Astrobot was a very well-received game. I do want to play at some point because I did like Astro's Playroom. And by the way, if you have a PS5 and you haven't played Astro's Playroom, it's literally free with your PS5. Go play it. It's a fun little platformer. But Astrobot and the Silent Hill 2 remake and Stellar Blade stand no chance against those other two. If you were to ask me which one I think is going to win, I think Metaphor is going to be the one that wins. Now, I haven't played Metaphor yet. I haven't played FF7 Rebirth yet. I don't know what the soundtracks to those games are like yet. But my gut feeling is that Metaphor is going to be the one that wins. But whatever one does win, it's going to be those two. The other games don't stand a chance. That's my opinion, of course, but still. What else do we got? That's interesting. Let's see. Let's see. Is there anyone that stands out that isn't? Let's see. Best action adventure game. It's kind of weird that they have best action game, but then they have best action adventure game. They're like two different categories. Why not just have best adventure game instead of action? I don't know. Whatever. I'm sure there's a reason for it, but we got Astrobot, Echoes of Wisdom, the Prince of Persia 2D game from earlier this year, Silent Hill 2, and Star Wars Outlaws. So Astrobot, again, well-received. Echoes of Wisdom, mostly well-received, I think. Again, it's obviously not as big as like a Tears of the Kingdom type thing, but I think it was mostly received well. And then Prince of Persia, that game was actually received surprisingly well. I know it was kind of memed on when the trailer first came out because of the character design being a ripoff of Black Panther or whatever people were complaining about. But the game itself, like if you take the character design and put it to the side, and take the fact that it's a Prince of Persia game, that's not really a Prince of Persia game, you put that to the side, and you actually just look at the game as a platformer, people thought it was a solid little Metroidvania type game. It didn't sell very well, though. I think the studio actually... Did it close down, or did a lot of staff get laid off? I forget, something with the studio happened. Yeah, Ubisoft Montpellier, which by the way is a studio that works on Rayman. Although there hasn't been a new Rayman game in forever, and the original creator of Rayman, who worked at the studio for a long time, left like earlier this year or last year, and there were some controversies surrounding him or something like that. I don't know, but anyway, who's gonna win this category? You know what? This might be a little weird. I'm gonna say Prince of Persia. I don't know why. I for some reason that's the one I feel like it's gonna. I don't know why. Just for some reason, that's the one that's in my gut is the one I feel like is gonna win that one. Because I don't really have a good reason for it. I haven't played it myself, but just for some weird reason, I feel like that's the one that's gonna win. Best role-playing game, best RPG, Dragon's Dogma 2, the Elden Ring expansion. We'll get to that whole controversy when we talk about Game of the Year. Don't you worry, we're gonna talk about it. FF7 Rebirth, Like a Dragon, Infinite Wealth, aka Yakuza 8, and then Metaphor again. Dragon's Dogma. That's a game that when did that came out this year? It must have been early in the year, like February or something. That's a game that, reception-wise, I think the game itself has been received mostly fine, but the technical problems on PC especially have definitely caused outrage. Elden Ring is Elden Ring, enough said, and again, we'll talk about that the whole controversy about that when we get to Game of the Year. FF7 Rebirth, enough said. Like a Dragon, aka Yakuza, that's also become popular these days, not really surprised. And the Metaphor, again, Atlas, not really surprised. Dragon's Dogma's not winning. I think that's pretty obvious. Amongst all those games, it's the one that has the least chance of winning, at least in my opinion. And again, I haven't played any of these games. Yes, I'm one of the 2 people that hasn't played Elden Ring, or Dark Souls, or Bloodborne. I haven't played any of the FromSoft games. I know, sacrilege. One of these days, again, there's a list, like with the movies, like there's a list of games I need to play that are popular and are well received that I will get around to one of these days, probably, surely, maybe. We'll see. Anyway, I mean, amongst all these, I mean, ironically, probably the same thing I said for music, probably FF7 or Metaphor. Like a Dragon's popular, but I don't think it's popular enough. I know that these aren't just popularity, but like popularity, for being honest, does matter to some extent. So I think realistically, I'm gonna say for this one, FF7 will win. And if it's not FF7, honestly, it might be I don't think Metaphor will win. I think it'll win music. I don't think it'll win RPG. I think it will lose RPG. So I'm going to say Rebirth for best role-playing game. Best fighting game, we got the new Dragon Ball, which is basically Tenkaichi 4. That's obviously a big deal. Grand Blue, Marvel vs. Capcom Collection. That is another... Oh, that's probably another controversy right there. I mean, we're going to include a collection as a game that's like for like an award show. I don't know, that's kind of weird. Multiverses and Tekken 8. Well, I'll tell you who's not going to win. The Marvel vs. Capcom Collection is not going to win because it's not actually a game, it's a collection. Multiverses is not going to win because that game has come and gone and didn't really work out. Tekken 8, Grand Blue will not win because Grand Blue is not popular enough. So it's going to be either Dragon Ball or Tekken 8. Right now, in this millisecond, I would say Dragon Ball. But that's only because it's more recent and because Dragon Ball is Dragon Ball. But Tekken 8 also has a decent chance as well because it's Tekken. It's a long-running franchise, so... One of those two. And both Tekken 8 and Dragon Ball Sparking Zero were received well, to my knowledge. Best Family Game. So what's funny about Best Family Game is it's become kind of a meme over the years that Best Family Game is basically just Best Nintendo Game, because most of the games that get nominated for this category tend to be first-party titles in some form, and this year is no different. The nominees this year are Astrobot, Echoes of Wisdom, Plucky Squire, Princess Peach Showtime, and then the new Mario Party. So that's 3 out of the 5 are first-party titles. Now, only one of those games is developed by Nintendo in-house, but... Well, actually, no, 2 of them if you want to count Nintendo Cube, formerly known as ND Cube. And then Good Feel, which made the recent Yoshi games, as well as Kirby's Epic Yarn, they made Princess Peach Showtime. But anyways, I'm getting off track here. I don't know. For this one, it'll probably be one of the. If you would ask me right now, I'd probably say probably Echoes of Wisdom. Either that or Astro Bot is gonna be my guess for that one. And what else do we got? Okay, best adaptation, basically best TV series. We got Arcane, that's obviously a very popular series. Fallout, that was also kind of a big deal when that came out. We have Knuckles, which is the spin-off of the recent Sonic movies, which was kind of mixed from what I've heard, but I haven't seen it myself. Then we have the kind of under-the-radar Yakuza series that came out on Amazon not too long ago. I don't know what the reception of that was. And then we had a Tomb Raider series that came out. That was an animated series on Netflix. And that one I think was not received well, but don't quote me on that. I mean, Arcane's kind of cheating because Arcane is not a new show. But Arcane is very popular and very well received. So it could win. I don't know if it was ever nominated before. Is this a new category? Or is this around in previous years? I'm not entirely sure, but I don't know. Anyways, my guess is it will either be... It's either Arcane or Fallout. Those are the only two that stand a chance. Arcane's been around longer, so I don't know if it should really count. But, Fallout was received well, generally speaking, but it's not as popular. But people like Arcane more. Arcane's like considered like this masterpiece of a series, or something along those lines. I don't know. People really, really like Arcane, so... I guess I'll say Arcane, but it's either that or Fallout. Those are the only two that stand a chance. Knuckles is not winning. Yakuza is not winning, and Tomb Raider is definitely not winning. Most anticipated game. Death Stranding 2, Ghosts of Yotai, the Ghost of Tsushima 2 game, that maybe is 2, maybe isn't. Again, I'm not entirely sure if it's a Miles Morales type deal or not. But it's the next game in the series, either way. GTA 6, shocker. Metroid Prime 4, shocker. And then Monster Hunter Wilds. I mean, we all know who's winning this category. It's not even close. You can have whatever opinion you want on any of the games in that list, but it is objectively correct that GTA 6 will win. And that is a word that I do not say lightly. We like to say objective, and literally on the internet a lot. But if you're gonna say the word objectively for something that's not technically objective, this is one of those things you can say it for. GTA 6 is the most anticipated game of all time. It will win that category by default. It doesn't need the audience to vote for it at all, and it would still win. Now, if GTA 6 wasn't there, who would win? Well, you might think that I'd lean towards Prime 4, but here's the thing. While yes, Prime 4 is a big deal in the Nintendo community, it's not a big deal in the general gaming community. Like, GTA 6 is a big deal for everyone. Whereas Prime 4 is only a big deal to Metroid Prime fans and to a lesser extent the general Nintendo fan base. And even that's not 100% true. Because Metroid has never been a super big series. It's obviously nowhere near as big as a Zelda or a Mario. So, actually, I wouldn't say that would be the automatic winner. Don't get me wrong, it's definitely a contender and it definitely deserves to be in the list, but you got it. But again, I have my biases, but I can also acknowledge that they exist and I can put them to the side. And I will tell you right now that I think Monster Hunter Wilds and even the new Ghost of Tsushima might have a better chance at winning than Prime 4 would. Because Monster Hunter is a big series, it's bigger than Metroid, and Ghost of Tsushima has only had one game, but people really liked that one game. Death Stranding 2, that's a big deal, but Death Stranding was not a universally loved game. So, I don't know. So, I mean, the long and short of it is, GTA 6 is going to win. Like, obviously, it's going to win. Like, duh. It's GTA 6. Nothing can compete with it. But honestly, outside of that, I would probably say... You know what? I'd probably say Monster Hunter Wilds. Then... I think then Prime 4. Then... Death Stranding, then Ghosts of Yota. That's my little order, so I don't know. GTA 6 is winning that one. That's all that really has to be said. Moving on. Let's see. Player's Voice. Now, this is the one category that is 100% voted by the public. And this one has Black Myth Wukong, Genshin Impact, the Elden Ring expansion, Wuthering Waves, which is a game I've never heard of, and then Zenless Zone Zero, which is another game in the MiHoYo collection. So basically, the company that makes Genshin Impact also makes Honkai Star Rail, and they also make this new game, which came out this year. So those are the games that are nominated. I mean, of those, the only two that feel like they're going to have any chance are Elden Ring and Black Myth Wukong. But what's funny about that is it's kind of competing against itself, because you have Black Myth Wukong, which was a big deal when it came out, and particularly in China, because it's a Souls game. I mean, it's not literally a Souls game, but it's a Souls-like or whatever. And those are obviously very popular right now. But it's also going up against an actual Souls game. So it's like you have the game that's inspired by FromSoft, and then you have FromSoft. Who do you think is going to win? I mean, obviously one of those is an expansion, not an actual game, but I don't know. Point is, between those two, I think Black Myth Wukong as a game would win that category, but Elden Ring has the advantage of being Elden Ring. And obviously Elden Ring is a very popular game, as are all of the Souls games from FromSoft. And Elden Ring, of course, won Game of the Year in 2022. So, yeah. So, I don't know. I guess right now I'm going to say Black Myth Wukong. But if it's not that, it'll be Elden Ring. The other games, I don't think, stand a chance. I mean, don't get me wrong, Genshin Impact and those games definitely are popular, but not Elden Ring popular. So, at least as far as I can tell. But, alright, so there's obviously other categories as well, but we're going to go ahead and kind of go past all of those, and let's just go ahead and get to the big one. The one everyone cares about the most. Let's just go ahead and talk about the Game of the Year. So, for Game of the Year this year, we have Astrobot, Balatro, which is a poker type game. It's basically the obligatory indie pick or indie-ish pick of the group. This has been a thing with the Game Awards for years, where the first 5 games are all well-known games that people care about, and then they have the one indie game. Now, I know that sounded probably pretty disparaging, the way I kind of just was like, and then we have all the games people know about and care about, and then we have this other game. Now, that's not entirely fair, because obviously there have been indie games nominated that are very popular. Like Hades was Hades was nominated one year. I think Hollow Knight was nominated one year, and then was Cuphead ever nominated? I don't know. The point is, they've had big indie games on there before. This is not one of them. This is no Undertale. This is no even Pizza Tower. This is a game that I have heard of, but only because of this. I would never have known about it otherwise. Now, of course, just because I've never heard about it doesn't mean it's not popular. But in my opinion, if it's not at least generally known by the online gaming community, then it's not popular enough to be in Game of the Year. That's at least my opinion on it. But anyways, Balatro, Black Myth Wukong, the Elden Ring expansion, FF7, and Metaphor. So, let's go ahead and address this. We're 1 hour into the discussion. Let's finally address the elephant in the room, the big controversy of the Game Awards this time around. The fact that Elden Ring, Shadows of the Erdtree, an expansion, is being nominated for Game of the Year. Now, if it was nominated for any of the other categories, I wouldn't mind that much. But how can an expansion, a DLC, be Game of the Year? I mean, I feel like this is just... I feel like the response has been pretty universal in that this is not... No. Like, again, you want to have it for any of those other sections, I'm okay with that. Because we have expansions in the Game Awards under, like, the Best Ongoing Games category. Like, they have, like, Destiny 2 and stuff in there. That's fine. But again, we're talking about game of the year. Game, not DLC of the year, not expansion of the year, game of the year. An expansion or DLC cannot be game of the year, no matter what it is. This could be any DLC for any game ever, and I still would believe that it shouldn't be in here, no matter how well received it is. Like, they could put out, like, let's say that Tears of the Kingdom got DLC, which it didn't. But let's say Tears of the Kingdom got, like, a really big expansion, like a really meaty expansion that was, like, half of a new game or whatever. And it was universally received well by everyone. And it was nominated. I still would say it shouldn't be nominated because it's not a game. It's an expansion. It's a DLC. It shouldn't count. No matter what the franchise is, no matter what the DLC is, no matter how meaty it is, you cannot be nominated for Game of the Year if you're not a game. I think that seems pretty reasonable to me. But yeah, so if you couldn't tell, I'm on the side that believes this shouldn't be nominated because it's not a game, it's an expansion. Why is it nominated? Well, I think it's nominated really for one simple reason, because it's Elden Ring. And I'm not even really knocking that too much. Like, Elden Ring is a very, very popular game. Again, I haven't played it. I haven't played any of the other FromSoft games, but it's very popular. And they probably figured that it's a big enough deal, especially because it took them like a year, 2 years for it to release, that, you know what, we'll put it in and we'll see how it goes. I don't think it should be there, but it's there. That's my opinion on that. So, oh yeah, and one other thing. I kind of didn't really talk about this too much. So, I only went over one category that Black Myth Wukong was nominated for. Black Myth Wukong is nominated in a bunch of these categories. It's nominated for Game of the Year, but it's also in Best Game Direction, Best Art Direction, the obligatory Player's Choice, or Player's Voice I mentioned before, and it might be in one or two other categories as well. But I guess my point with that is it's actually here. And why is that notable? Well, it's because there were a lot of people that thought that the Game Awards was going to snub this game. That they were going to pretend it didn't exist. Because it's a Chinese-made game that goes against the establishment or whatever. You know, people thought that it was, you know, because the gaming media hated it, or there was that one guy, I forget what the story was, but there was this thing with, like, IGN rated it badly for some really stupid reason or something. I don't know. Point is, because of all of that stuff, people thought it was going to get snubbed and they weren't going to nominate it for anything, even if it was a popular game. But they didn't. It's here, and it's not only in Game of the Year, but it's in, like, 3 other categories. So, they didn't snub it. They didn't throw it under the rug for some arbitrary reason. It's here. Which is cool. I don't think it's going to win. Game of the Year, anyway. But it's cool that it's nominated. And it's cool that they didn't just brush it under the rug. Again, I haven't played it. I have no personal opinion on it. But with all the drama it went through with, like, oh, IGN said this about it, and game journalists said bad things about it, and that being a huge controversy, and people, again, thought that they were going to throw it under the rug. It's cool that they didn't. That after all that, they still kept it like they should have. Whether or not it deserves to be a nominee for Game of the Year, I'm sure is a bit debatable. I know there are people that would probably be like, why not Stellar Blade? Personally, I haven't played Stellar Blade. I know it's a popular game, obviously. I don't know if that game is big enough to justify Game of the Year, personally. But that's another game people would have wanted to see, probably. But again, that's a different conversation. So, anyways, let's just get to it. Instead of just dragging this out anymore. What do I think is going to win Game of the Year? Okay, first let's talk about what I want to see win. I haven't played any of these games, so I cannot personally vouch for any of them 100%. If you were to ask me right now what I would want to see win, probably Metaphor. That's the game I would want to see win right now. But I haven't played the game, so that's just going purely on the fact that I like Atlas more than anything else. And the game was received really well. So if you were to ask me what I want to see win, I'd say Metaphor. What do I think is actually going to win? Well, I'll tell you who's not going to win. Astrobot's not going to win. Balattro's not going to win. And I'm sorry. Well, it's cool that it's nominated, but Black Myth Wukong's not going to win either. The only 3 games that stand a chance are the Elden Ring expansion, FF7 Rebirth, and Metaphor. Now, we just did that whole spiel about whether or not an expansion should be nominated for Game of the Year. But one thing we haven't addressed is whether or not a remake of something should be nominated. Now, I haven't played Rebirth. I don't know how much it deviates from the original. From what I've heard, it can deviate a lot in places. And I don't even know if the big twist happens the way it does. I have somehow managed to avoid all spoilers of it this whole year, crazy enough. But FF7, the remake series in general, even the first game, which outside of that last chapter is fairly faithful to the original for the most part, even that game I think would be a little questionable. I don't remember if it was nominated for Game of the Year in 2020. I want to say it wasn't, but maybe it was. I'm not entirely sure. But I guess my point is, should a remake of a game be nominated? Now, personally, I think for Rebirth, at least in particular, I think it's fine. Because even as someone that hasn't played it yet, even though I literally have it, it's sitting on my shelf. I haven't played it, but it's there. But even as someone that's only played the first remake, Part 1, the game is clearly different enough than the original, just in gameplay alone, that I think it justifies being its own thing. So, like, what would be an example of a remake that wouldn't be that shouldn't be nominated? Well, let's go with a remake of one of my favorite games of all time. A remake that I still haven't played yet, by the way. The Thousand Year Door. Came out earlier this year. Beloved classic by everyone. Absolutely beloved by everyone, myself included. That game shouldn't be nominated. And it's not. It's not nominated for anything on this list. But it shouldn't be nominated anyway, because it is a true remake. It is a 1-to-1 direct copy of the original with a couple of quality of life enhancements and with a visual refresh. It is not a new game. It is the original GameCube game with new graphics. That is all it is. And that's not a bad thing. The Thousand Year Door didn't need much fixing. In fact, the original GameCube version still holds up really well, even in 4K, but that's a whole other thing. The point is, that's just a remake. FF7 is not really a remake, it's a reimagining. It is a remake, but it's also its own thing. And I think even as someone that's only played Part 1, that's very obvious. Never mind whatever craziness may happen in Parts 2 and when it later comes out, Part 3. So personally, I think it's perfectly fine for it to be nominated because it is clearly much more than just a carbon copy remake like A Thousand Year Door is, or like the Dragon Quest Pixel Remaster, which is technically a remake because it's a new engine and stuff like so. Or The Last of Us Part 1, which was a remake. Yeah, like those are all just 1-to-1 remakes of the original. But FF7 is its own thing while still retelling the original story in a new way. So whatever, you get the point. I think it's perfectly fine that's nominated. And then obviously Metaphor is just its own thing. So yeah, I personally would want Metaphor to win. But who I think is actually going to win? This is honestly kind of tough because I don't think Metaphor is going to win, even though I want it to win. It will definitely win in some categories, but it's not going to win the big one. FF7 will definitely win one of the categories, but I'm not entirely sure it will win either. But at the same time, is Elden Ring gonna really win twice in a row? I don't know. Honestly, I'm not sure. You know, honestly, maybe Black Myth Wukong is not as unlikely as I think. Yeah, honestly, I'm not really sure about this one. It's not going to be Astrobot and it's not going to be Balatro. But, Black Myth Wukong maybe actually had more of a... But here's the thing, though. Then we have the same conundrum that we had with the other category, where if you can pick between the FromSoft competitor and then FromSoft, you're going to pick FromSoft, right? Like, I mean, I know people probably have their opinions on Black Myth one way or the other, or the Shadow of the Erdtree expansion one way or the other, but I think from a casual perspective, it's pretty obvious that let's say, let me think of an example. What's a game that's like very much inspired by another game that's like a direct came out around. I would say Horizon Zero Dawn and Breath of the Wild, but the thing is, Horizon Zero Dawn is not inspired by Breath of the Wild. They just happen to come out in a similar time frame. Whereas Black Myth Wukong is very much inspired by the Souls games. But the Souls games have been around for like 15 years, so... I don't know. I can't think of a proper equivalency here. Of a true, proper, like... whatever. Anyway. I'm gonna say... You know what? I'm gonna go for it. I'm going to say it's going to be either FF7 or Black Myth Wukong. I don't think Metaphor is going to win, even though I want it to win, but I don't think it's going to win. And I think Elden Ring, despite the fact that it's Elden Ring, I do think that the fact that it's a DLC and an expansion will legitimately hold it back, even amongst the people that are voting for it. Which is not us. It's like a committee or whatever the heck it is. I think even they would probably be like, but it's an expansion though. And you might be saying, oh, you're putting too much faith in the Game Awards, but am I allowed to have faith? I don't know. I feel like people are way too cynical when it comes to the Game Awards and the industry in general these days. So is it really that bad to like have a little bit of optimism? But that's a whole other conversation. So you know what? I'm going to say either Rebirth or Black Myth Wukong. Those are going to be my two. FF7 has the advantage of being FF7. But then again, what's the reception to it? Because I will admit, because I've completely ignored it ever since it came out and I haven't gotten any spoilers for it, I don't really know what the reception has been. I think it's been received well. At least it's been... Okay. It's been received well amongst the people that liked the first one. Because, while the first one was received really well, the way it ended in the diversions, there were a decent amount of people that were turned off by that. And were like, I'm not going to get involved in Nomura's crazy Kingdom Hearts nonsense or whatever. That personally wasn't me, but there were a lot of people that were like that. Not enough people, but a decent minority, for sure. In this game, again, I don't know what kind of crazy stuff happens in it. I don't know any spoilers. I don't know what happens at the end, other than there's apparently another Sephiroth fight, I think, which isn't really surprising, honestly, even if it doesn't really make sense. But hey, there wasn't supposed to be one in the first game, but they had it anyway. You know, you obviously you don't fight him until the very end of, when he's in the crater or whatever. Is it? But anyway, I don't know. The point is, I'll just leave it at. Dang it! I keep going back and forth on this. Elden Ring has a strong possibility because it's Elden Ring, but it's also not a new game. Black Myth Wukong is very popular, but is it popular enough, especially in the West? Because if this was a Chinese awards, then it would have a way stronger chance at winning. But this is an American awards show, Western awards show, so its chances are a lot lower. Like, even if you ignore all of the game journal, even if you ignore all the baggage of game journalists don't like the game, or even if you ignore all of that stuff and just look at the people that do like it, is that enough people versus something like Elden Ring or FF7 to be enough to win? I don't know. I'm really not sure. Well, we got to wrap this up because this has been going on for over an hour, so I'm going to say You know what? I can't. Oh, thinking of a definitive one is really hard for this one, honestly. You know, I'll go with the meme. I'll meme it. We'll go with Elden Ring. It'll win 2 years in a row. Well, it won't technically be 2 years in a row. It'll be a year and then nothing and then a year. Whatever. It'll win twice. We'll go with the meme pick, I guess, and we'll say Elden Ring because, haha, it'll win twice or something. I don't know. I mean, it does genuinely have a real shot at winning. I just personally feel that it being an expansion should hold it back more. But obviously, I'm not the one deciding. So I don't know. We'll say Elden Ring, but personally, I want to see Metaphor win. And with that said, I hoped this discussion would honestly be shorter, maybe more like 30, 40 minutes, but hey, it may not be called the Nincast anymore, but these discussion videos are still going to be an hour long. That is something that clearly will not change. You know, different name, same shit. That's a word I don't normally say in these videos. I didn't even mean to say it. I was going to say something else, but that word came out instead. But, yeah, so, I guess that's what I got to say about the Game Awards. Despite the fact that this video went on for longer than it should have, honestly, I don't have much to say about it. In terms of announcement stuff, there's really not anything big that I expect to be shown by any of the companies, really. In terms of the awards, I mean, there's no game in any of these categories that I'm personally dying to see win. So, I mean, obviously the awards are never that important in the grand scheme of things, but obviously it's still cool to see your favorite games win, especially Game of the Year. But I don't know. So, we'll just leave it at that. Thank you for listening this far. Apologies for how long it is and the fact that I probably rambled too much and went on too many side tangents. But again, it may not be called the Nincast anymore, but the discussion series is still the discussion series with all the trademarks it's had for forever. So, yeah. So, let me know what you guys think. What do you guys want to see be announced? What do you think may be announced? And what do you guys think might or want to see win? I will, of course, be doing my obligatory reaction stream. So be stuned. Oh my god. Okay, so for those of you that listened to my final episode of the Nincast from the other day, you will know that I said that, I'm recording this at like 1:30. Well, right now it's 12:24 a.m. So I'm kind of running out here, but yeah. So yeah, just let me know down below what you feel about the Game Award, all the Game Awards stuff. I'll be looking forward to it, and stay tuned for the stream. I guess later today, because again, it is 12:25 a.m., so it is technically December 12th. So stay tuned for later today, I suppose. I'll probably just put this video out as soon as I'm done editing it. Realistically, there's no real point in trying to gatekeep it, especially when there's not going to be that much time in between the video and the awards happening. So I'll probably just record this, edit it, and just upload it, even if it's at like 3 a.m. or whatever. Or maybe I'll put it up at 6. I don't know. I'm not going to wait till 12. I know that. That will only have a few hours in between at that point. So I want to give it at least some breathing room to be relevant. Even though realistically it's going to get like 3 views. But hey, it is what it is, right? As long as someone watched it, then it was worth the time. So, again, thank you all for watching, or listening rather. And with that being said, this is Logan59XP. And I'll see you guys next time.